Well, and don't take this wrong. I mean, you're acting like a lot of my clients. I mean, wherever there's return, you chase it. Essentially.
No, and absolutely not taking it wrong, because the issue with why we can do that is, the pension fund, and that's one of the advantages. The pension fund's been around since 1895. We have a longer time horizon. Again, that's subject to them, the employer, actually funding us, right?
Well, yeah. Well, what do you? I guess. Well, let's zero in on that. Politically, I mean, again, this has nothing to do with right and wrong, because it seems to me you guys. Plus, I also want to talk about something else in a minute, but I don't think I'll do it right now. I don't think you guys don't seem to have the examples like the way the suburban people are, and I think you guys could sometimes get tarred with this brush that I don't think you should be. The suburban, doesn't that work differently? Where if somebody gives some guy some incredible pension out of, say, Oak Lawn, that Oak Lawn they're not up for that. That money comes out of the state somehow.
Yeah, no. The state has to pay what's called the employer portion, basically. That's what the state has to kick in every year. With Chicago Public Schools, the employer, Chicago Public Schools, has to kick in the employer, so they don't let these salaries get out of control because it ultimately costs them more money.
Yeah, because there's guys retiring in some places where their retirement's way more than they ever made, right? Not everybody, but some people.
No, there's going to be abuses everywhere. I think, again, I looked last night, we have about 24,000 retirees, and I'll just give you again, there's no need to sugarcoat it. We have 100 of the 24,000 that clear an annual pension more than $100,000.
Is that?
So 100 out of 24,000, and most of those, in fact, I'm going to guarantee almost all of those were principals.
Okay,
who worked mostly 38 years.
Right, so it's not 20 years and out thing. So it's not.
No. I'm pretty safe to say there's nobody who worked here 20 years, went out, and is making more than $100,000. Now, again, that's not the way it is with a lot of other funds, but because the employer is on the hook, they have to keep those salaries down.
So where I'm heading with this is that there is going to be an issue, and I guess I don't know if you were listening earlier. My cousin in Columbus, he was the head of the union that does all the water pumping stations and stuff, and we were sort of having the same discussion. And I said, you have to understand that even though the deal's a deal and you're not abusing anything, in 10 years, no one's even know what a pension is in the rest of the world.
No, you're right. And again, one of the hardest barriers to get over is what the union people feel like that. They're standing there right now and saying, well, I shouldn't have to do anything. We have a deal.
Yeah.
But realistically, you stick your head in the sand, you could be in trouble. So you're going to have to come up with what's called a fair deal, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also reaches the point where if other people, it's one thing if other people don't want to pay. It's quite another if they can't.
Right.
Then you just, we'll talk about. We've had some. We might as well be straight. We've had some people, essentially retire from the mayor's office. Okay, and it's not a question of whether they deserve it, not deserve it. It's not my call, but it's. How many people at Walmart, when the same mayor's office talks about what great jobs these are, how many of those guys you have to pay one guy's pension at $100,000? Like, what? A city full of them? I guess the part that some of the people on the private side, they don't quite get how that some of the people on the public side don't realize how hard it is for the private side right now. Nobody's gotten even the 2 and 3% raise that people are fighting over. Nobody should even think about that. In the public or in the private sector, I can remember getting, back in the 70s, where everybody got like a 5 or 10% raise every year. Nobody cared if some teacher got 2 or 3 or 4%. More power to them. Yeah, but now all of a sudden, the only people getting a raise are people in the public sector, which is a different world, somehow. And you're right. It's a question, not if it's, what's fair to one person is not to another, and that's a tough deal. And I imagine you argue about that all the time.
Yeah, no, we do. And again. You got to have the theme of the shared sacrifice, right? Everybody's going to have to kick in. Now, here's the problem, though, with you're looking at the guy across the table, and as a teacher or a cop or a firefighter, you kicked in 7, 8, 9% of your salary every year, and you haven't been able to take a break.
Right.
You've always made that contribution, right? And you look across the table and you see the city or the state, and you know what those guys do? They take a break. So if I say to you, okay, you know what? I'm going to raise my contribution from 8 to 13. That's a pretty big sacrifice. Most of us would agree.
Oh, yeah.
what's the state and the city going to do? Well, they're going to just in 5 years when times get tough, we need to take a break. So how do you hold them accountable? That's what I'm trying to argue in my editorials. And
it actually was very well written. I want to congratulate you on that. It was not adversarial at all. It was very well written. Do you think? I mean, is the fact that these guys quote owe you? You know, I use that as a, and they're so much behind, even though the Constitution says that they sort of have to catch up. Do you really think they ever will?
Well, you need to take the first step. So every year there's a certain expense, and let's just say, I'm going to use a number, right? Right now they owe me in 2014 $600 million. They're not going to be able to pay me $600 million. I know that, but I also know that the cost for that year for the teachers is about $200 million in that year, and then the other $400 million is because they've failed in the past. Well, if you keep failing, your ratio is going to obviously keep going in the reverse, right? So you got to make the payment of $200 million in 2014, and you got to start paying down the debt. And now again, we've been around since 1895. Right. God willing, we'll be around another 100 years. You got a long period of time to pay down that debt, but you got to start eating away at it. You can't just say, Kevin, we cannot pay you $600 million. We can't even pay you $200 million. We're going to pay you $100 million this year. Well, that just does not work in any model.
No, it doesn't work. But having said it, if they at least write me that check, why you got that thought? Right? I mean, it's almost, any check's a good check at this point.
You got it. Bird in the hand. Yeah, actually, any type of cash flow is good cash flow.
Well, that's why I'm wondering if maybe at some point, if they, you might just want to say, we'll take it. We'll talk about that privately someday, but I wonder if maybe that isn't because the thing that concerns me is unless there's, I love Chicago. I've lived there my whole life, and, I came, but I look and see that we lost, 200,000 people in the last decade, and we have a lady who works for us from Cleveland, and what Cleveland used to be 680,000 people, now it's like 390 or some, amazing number. And, and if I see the city at the next, despite everybody's good intentions, if we're down another 300,000, come next census, everybody can have all these numbers they want, but it doesn't matter. I mean, there's no way. The last man standing in Chicago is going to be up for $100 million. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, unless we find a way where everybody can somehow participate and live here, and businesses want to be here, and the thing grows, I don't see one person, unless you're somewhat of a crook, walk away with the dough, right? Because either everybody prospers or nobody does. It seems to me, whatever. And you seem like you're sort of the same view.
Well, again, a lot of people forget that the public, the teachers, the firefighters, the police, we're also taxpayers too, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So it's like we're on both sides of the equation. We want our pensions guaranteed. We think we're owed them. But then at the end of the day, it's like, we're going to have to fund these things as well. So that's why I mean, again, I think we all have to get in the room and basically say, okay, we're going to do this. What are you going to do? And don't.
So in other words, you're willing to, I won't use the term K, but you're willing to negotiate as long as what you negotiate for you is sort of what you're going to get.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Burn me once. What's the old adage? Burn me once, shame on you. Burn me twice, shame on me.
Well, yeah. I mean, you meant the numbers you mentioned earlier. I'd rather stay. You owe me $600 million than cut it to $300. You don't pay me that either.
Well, and again, we talk about the city of Chicago. That's the other huge problem, right? When the state's pumping $2.4 billion into the suburban and downstate teacher systems, and they're giving Chicago Teachers Pension Fund basically zero.
Yeah,
that doesn't work.
How does that work? How does that now work?
That's how the mayor can get out of this. The problem with Chicago teachers is he needs to go down to the state and basically fight to get money for Chicago Teachers Pension Fund. That helps his employer, Chicago Public Schools, dramatically. They don't have to pay $600 million in 2014. Maybe they only have to pay the $200.
But you don't ever want to get included in that other pool. That would be silly.
No, you don't ever want to merge us with the state.
No,
you want to talk about fiscal mismanagement.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's horrible. Kevin, I'd love to have you back on. I don't think we covered everything, but I think we scratched the surface. Hope you enjoyed it enough that if we invite you back, you come back.
It's always fun to have a good discussion, so I appreciate it.
Kevin, take care of yourself, man. Thank you for coming on.